let's move on then to talk about USDGC in general. So I want to first just kind of talk about the tournament itself. Every year USDGC comes up, there's similar controversies, or not even really controversies. There's similar like points that people bring up, talk about, and then they're still around the next year.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep coming up. So I'm going to reference back to the Ulti World article that I referenced a few weeks back. It was an interview between Charlie Eisenhood and the president of the board of the PDGA. So a very high up person at the PDGA.
Right.
And so talking about USDGC directly, it was basically the general question was, should a manufacturer be able to own a PDGA major? Is kind of the topic I want to talk on. But he talked to them and said, do you think the PDGA has a responsibility to have more say in the way that a major like USDGC is disseminated? So this is the board of directors president response. Well, USDGC is not our thing, right? It's a major, and it's an awesome event, one of the biggest and best events out there, but it's run by the folks in Rock Hill. It just so happens that this year is just unique, and they're running a concurrent women's event. It's not usually the case. In fact, you notice the name is different. It's because it's not actually U.S. Women's, and there's good and bad about that. I think running concurrent with the men's tournament, I think that some of it's good. I love to watch FPO, and I watch FPO lead card, second card, just like the men for me. That part isn't what I wanted to bring up. I want to talk about his initial response. Well, the USDGC is not our thing. This is the PDGA, a PDGA major.
All right.
Going into the second part of these questions, the Ultra would ask again, this is a long-standing decision at this point, but do you think that a manufacturer like Innova should be able to have control over one of the sport's 3 professional majors in the USDGC? And this is the board of director president response. Yeah, I just don't have much of an issue with it, I guess. Innova's pouring a lot of money into this event. In fact, they've done it for 20 years, right? Yeah, about 20, I think. And so, hey, just keep pouring money into it. And then, all of our majors have big sponsors. Glassblown Open's not a major, but it's a big event. Glassblown's kind of dynamic disc thing, and it's awesome too. And it's awesome in a kind of different way. Each manufacturer has its own events, and, they're pouring money into resources into these events. I think it's great. So, 2 things.
What did he just say? Did he just say all majors have corporate or manufacturer sponsors? What did
big
he say?
Sponsors. All of our majors have a big sponsor.
Right. Okay. But then he proceeds to name non-majors.
He named it NT and Glassblown. But that's because if you look at the tournament, Glassblown is probably the closest thing to USDGC in that a manufacturer owns it. It's almost like D-Glow or Ledgestone.
Right.
Like Ledgestone's never going to happen outside of Discraft, basically. But the difference with all those is they're not a major.
Yeah, well, that's the
and
big thing.
Another thing too is a title sponsor has no say in how the tournaments ran.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
Whereas this is the opposite way around.
Yeah.
Innova's the title sponsor of a PDGA major, but the PDGA has no say in how it's ran almost.
Right. Having like corporate entities pour money into events, yeah, of course that's a great thing. That's the goal of the sport. We want that to happen. But yeah, you want them doing that because they want to get exposure, not because they want to run the event.
Well, another thing too is, let's say that this was an open market where the USDGC is the PDGA major and it's on the market every year
for bidding.
Yeah, it's still at Winthrop.
Mm-hmm.
It's still, it's still down there. The course is the same, blah, blah, blah. How much more added cash is coming in? If you have now you can fight between Discraft, Innova, Dynamic, Prodigy. You're all fighting now.
Or none of the above.
Now you're getting
LL Bean or whoever, Bushnell.
Yeah, Yupong hats.
Right.
I looked at your hat. Now you're getting North Face in. You're getting someone. Like, this is a prestigious title.
Right.
So, how much money are we losing by keeping it there?
That's a good point, because they can set that bar wherever they want.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the thing with this whole deal is the bummer is that USDGC is, like, in my opinion, we talked before about like majors needing to have like history behind them and having that sense of prestige, down the road. And USDGC is the only event that really does a great job of that, I think. Or they do the best job. Not the only one that does a great job. They do the best job of it. Like the USDGC to me, because Worlds, the title itself is the most prestigious, but that's only because it's world champion, right? And that's because disc golf that's what they put on discs. So-and-so world titles. Disc golf loves the whole idea of the world champion. But the USDGC as an event is like, It's run so professionally. Everybody treats it so special.
It's like probably the hardest tournament to win as
It's
well.
so hard to win. The winner's changing all the time.
Yeah.
And it's on like the best tournament golf course there is, really, like as far as challenging the players and just psyching them out and making them crumble. Like, it's so exciting to watch. But Innova has that hostage because they did start it.
Yeah.
In fairness, it's not like it started and Innova bought it. No, Innova literally created this thing.
And that's another thing too, is like if you look back in 1999 when it started, it's always been an Innova event and it's always been a major.
Right.
It just started as a major.
And the thing is, the game was small enough back then that like Innova had every right to say, like, it's not like they were some kind of monopoly back then, like saying we're going to own the major. They were like, hey, we should have a United States Disc Golf Championship. We have the resources to get that going, so let's do it. And they just so happened to still run it, which if I were them, like from Innova's point of view, of course
I wouldn't give it up.
Of course they still own it, because that's the thing now. You're only, if the PDGA wanted to have all the majors, which, I mean, in their position, obviously they're like, yeah, we don't really care because it doesn't really do much harm to anything. But if they wanted to have it, they would just have to create their own separate thing. And then they'd have to compete with a tournament that the players love.
Well, see, this is the tough thing to me is, well, I mean, there's another side of this too, is like, it's a PDGA major that doesn't even play by PDGA rules.
Right. Well,
so,
yeah, it's broken.
Yeah. Now,
in that sense,
I do want to say I like the USDGC's variant of the rules more than the PDGA.
So do I.
But if it's a PDGA major, it should play by the current PDGA rules.
Right.
There shouldn't be
it's quite odd.
There shouldn't be this thing of, yeah, you know, I averaged 1080 at USDGC, but my rating's going to go down because it doesn't count. Like, it just doesn't count towards it. That doesn't make sense to me. But as far as someone owning a PDGA major, it makes no sense at all to me.
Yeah.
Because then the PDGA forfeits all their control. And if like that's literally the exact quote, well, USDGC is not our thing, right? Incorrect. It's a PDGA major. It is your thing. It is the PDGA's thing.
You just don't own it.
You just don't own it. You have no control over it.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, it's a bummer, but like that whole thing is gridlocked because unless somehow, like, Innova's never giving that up, because why would they? They're gonna have to be bought out, basically. That they're gonna have to. Somebody is going to have to, and I don't even know, I'm sure there's no contract structure because they created the event. It's not like they bought it. So like somebody is going to have to bring an offer to the table, whether that be the PDGA.
It would have to be the PDGA. Because no one else should be able to buy it.
And they're going to have to say, we are going to pay this much for the rights to this event. That's the only way they're getting out of that situation, because Innova's not going to hand it over, obviously.
Well, I think you would,
and the event
if the PDGA cared enough to get it, which in my opinion would be a good investment for them. Not to buy it, but a good investment for them to look into, how do we do this?
Yeah.
They would need to just create a competing major and take out USDGC as a major. That's what you would have to do.
I know,
that's
but
that's the way.
That's just a bummer.
Unless Innova's like, or I'm even fine with Innova being the title sponsor and the PDGA being like, hey, we'll agree to keep you on as a title sponsor, the main host of the event for X amount of years. Yeah. Where you're the title sponsor, you're the presenting sponsor, but we need to own the event. We need to take it on to where we're doing it.
I just don't see Innova giving it up. And like the competing major thing, it's such a bummer that like this is like the only event, like every other event in disc golf, that if it was owned by a company and PDGA said we're just going to create our own one, I'd be fine with. But because of Winthrop being like the iconic US course, like I would be so bummed out.
Well, like the tough part is if I'm Dynamic and I own the Glass Blown Open, right? And I'm sitting there, I'm upset because there's no, like, I'm not a major. So like there's no way that Dynamic can own a major. There's no way Discraft can own a major now. You know what I mean? There's no way they can put their name on the World Championship and sponsor it and stuff.
There's no room for anymore.
But they can't own it, right? So there's always going to be this thing of like, no one else will ever be able to do USDGC merch. No one else will be able to do. You can put like, you could put Eric Oakley, one-time USDGC champion, on a Dynamic disc, or Paul Macbeth, 3-time USDGC champion on a Force or something. But you couldn't ever create merch. You couldn't ever capitalize on the event. And so there's also, you can't vend there because Innova controls who's vending there.
Yeah.
All of that stuff should go away. It should be a PDGA owned event. If the main pro shop wants to be only Innova and Innova's the title sponsor, cool. But the fly marts and stuff, there should be, every company should be able to be there, represented at the USDGC. There's normally so many fans there.
Yeah.
It's to me, it's a almost a bad, not really a bad look, but a bad thing for the sport to have a manufacturer own one of the majors and fully control one of the majors to where they can do their own thing. They can charge $20, $30, $40 for pay-per-view as a PDGA major.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I completely agree in the fact that the situation's unfortunate, but I also am not going to fault Innova whatsoever because
I'm not faulting Innova.
Yeah, because
this
it's
is
smart,
not
yeah,
Innova.
It's smart business, and they, in fairness, they do a good job with the event.
They do a great job. They run it.
Well, I thought they did.
The event
itself,
they run perfectly.
Yeah.
Perfectly. I don't know why I said it that way.
Perfectly.
The design of the course, I think, has some question marks to it.
It's all right. Well, I was more pointing towards the coverage.
I was gonna say the coverage and some of the other stuff we'll get to in a second has some question marks to it.
Yeah.
But there's not really an event that treats players as professionals as much as the USDGC does.
Right.
So this is I'm not coming at Innova. I don't want that to come across as I am. I'm coming at the PDGA for not even coming at them. I'm saying the PDGA needs to own this major, and if they're not going to own it, they need to at least say, if you want to be a PDGA major, you have to enforce our current rules. I understand like X majors and stuff like that. Like the collegiate disc golf is a PDGA AM only major, but pros are allowed to play in it because of the rules of collegiate disc golf. That's a little bit different, because the rules of the game didn't change.
Mm-hmm.
The USDGC, the rules of the game change. And mainly in stroke and distance. I think that's pretty much the only one. And their reasoning behind it makes sense. Because imagine hole 17 without stroke and distance. It's just like a normal island hole where you proceed to a drop zone after one.
Yeah, honestly, if I'm the PDGA, I would just add clauses to the rules that allows you to select a way an island hole can be played and things like that, like of that nature, to make it so that the USDGC can be PDGA compliant, and then just be like, and then mention it to them. Just be like, this isn't really. We're gonna work with you. We're gonna make this work, but then we want you to use our rules. And
I mean, that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's pretty much the only one.
Because that's not hard to do. They can do whatever they want with the rules.
I mean, there's weird things like I just read today. Hole 17. If you're on the island and you're safe on the island and your putt goes OB, you still don't play line of flight. You re-putt.
That one doesn't make sense.
That's crazy. It's on the T sign, if you don't believe me.
Yeah, that's dumb.
That's crazy. But stuff like that, it's against the PDGA rule. So how is a PDGA major playing against their rules? Yeah. And it is tough because it's the most prestigious title to a lot of extent. It's the title with the most history, again, to a lot of extent. Because, I mean, the world champion, I think the difference is it rotates.
Right.
So like Worlds doesn't have this history behind the course. You can't.
Like World Champion has history, but like the World Championships doesn't necessarily have the same, because
like when you think of USDGC, you think of people crumbling on hole 17. You think of the pressure on that. You think of the hole 1, even though we lost it last year, it's back. You think of all these things.
And I don't mind events moving. Don't get me wrong. Something that ball golf does that's like kind of cool is they will do kind of a rotation, and a rotation that might take 20 years to even get back to a course that's been there before, but they'll like visit courses they've been at before. Like there are certain courses you associate with certain majors, and that's kind of cool. Like I'd like to see a world championships like 20 years down the line and be like, oh, I remember when they were there in 2015, and like, yeah, that's a good world's course. Like I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah,
because then you can kind of look back and see like what happened at certain holes. Like, oh, I remember when they played this last time.
Yeah, one thing good about Worlds rotating is, and hopefully this is coming soon, it's good for tourism.
Yeah,
and it also allows it to go overseas, which hopefully will happen soon.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a world championship. I don't understand why. I get that the majority of the field's going to be from the U.S., but if you put it in Finland, the top pros and from the U.S. that have a chance at winning are going over there. And then you're still going to have a full tournament from a great crop of Finnish pros.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Or even just European pros in general.
Yeah.
So to me, if it's rotating, I think it goes like East Coast, Midwest, West Coast, Finland, maybe somewhere else in Europe, back to East Coast. Yeah. And then you just keep, have it on some type of cycle.
I'm very excited to have the European Open back.
Yes, absolutely.
The European majors are so
European
good.
Open is similar to USDGC in how good it treats
And they stay at the same course, right? It's always at the Beast.
Pretty
isn't it?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
USDGC and European Open are really good majors.